Hello everyone, I am just getting my slides activated here. Welcome to the Digestive 101 class. Alright, so some of you are joining me now. Welcome. So today's topic is going to be on Digestive Health 101. I have so much to share with you, and I'm just going to wait a few minutes for people to join. Because I just started my class, and sometimes it's like, hey, hello, welcome, come on in. And I see a couple people joining. Hi Gail, hi Sharon. Sharon's my sister. Special. She's coming from Denver, so she's all the way from Denver. Okay, so Instagram Live is just telling me that they're telling everybody that I'm starting the class now. All right, well, I'm just going to go for it because I have so much to share. This is one of those topics that every single one of us deals with some kind of digestive issue at some point in our life. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Faith Schumann, and I'm a chiropractor. I've been practicing for the last 15 years, and I love all things health and wellness and nutrition. And I tell people that my free time is reading books on health and wellness, listening to podcasts, reading articles. That is what gets me up every single day. I know I'm weird, but that is why I'm put on this earth, is to share the excitement of health and wellness and educate as many people as I can on how to gain back their health. Because let's face it, if you don't know how to do it and you don't take ownership of your own health, you're just like a sinking ship, right? Or you're going down paths that you're lost. And I don't want that for you, because there's so many opportunities to bring health and healing to your body from your own knowledge and your own doing. I don't want you to be reliant on our medical system, but I don't want you guys to be reliant on a system that ebbs and flows and really, right, we'll face it, is just going to give us duct tape for medications for symptoms. And I'm here to tell you guys how to help the root causes and what's causing your digestive issues. So thanks for joining. So let's just get started. And so one of those things that you've probably heard before that's in my slide is you are what you eat, right? Well, it's very true. However, you are what you eat and digest and break down and absorb, and then also your body's got to get rid of stuff. And so often, many of us maybe are good at eating healthy, but we're not always so great at the later steps of breaking down our foods and absorbing nutrition and all that stuff. So as a result, we have diseases and issues that can arise despite our attempts to eat as a healthy as possible diet as we can. But yeah, let's face it, there's things that happen to us in life, from birth, from stressful situations, an infection, you name it, life, right? On this planet, something's going to happen to us. I don't think I've ever met anyone who hasn't had something attack their digestive system. And so as a result, it can totally derail your health. And in fact, I have a patient, she had went on a missions trip and she was trying to do the right thing and she got a parasite infection, right? Well, that derailed her for a long time, and she just didn't know what was going on with her. She couldn't break foods down. She was having bloating and she was getting very sick, losing weight. And then it started to affect her hormone cycle. So that's just a simple example of one instance where she's trying to, go and, spread good news and she gets sick, right? Antibiotics, right? We've all had that where maybe we've gotten a bacterial infection, or maybe we have a urinary tract infection and we get put on an antibiotic. And I've had patients where they're just going for a routine antibiotic, and as a result, they end up in the hospital with something called C. diff. And if you know anything about C. diff, it's an overgrowth of a bacteria called C. difficile. And if you get too much of that, you literally are having nonstop diarrhea to the point where you can dehydrate and die, okay? So these are just simple things that you hear about all the time. And so I want to equip my patients to know when something happens to them, they don't have to become victim to now their whole life is turned upside down. And so we have to educate you on how the digestive system works in general, okay? So if you're having issues, you can have food sensitivities, you can have seasonal allergies, you can have food allergies. You know, IBS is like irritable bowel syndrome. Crohn's is an autoimmune situation where you're in so much pain, and sometimes you can have bowels that are bloody. That one's a scary one. We've all had constipation, we've all had bloating, we've all had diarrhea, so those are common, but long term of any of those, that's not cool. And then autoimmune, and if you know my story, and maybe you don't, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease probably over 15 years ago is while I was in chiropractic school. And the diagnosis was multiple sclerosis. And you can watch my video on sugar and how to manage sugar, because that was one of the biggest things I had to do for my health. But then the second biggest thing I had to do was heal my digestive tract. And I'll walk through a couple things, obviously, in this talk to share with you guys what I had to do to reverse my autoimmune disease, okay? And so I'll just let you all know I no longer suffer from the multiple sclerosis symptoms. And if you're curious what I had, because some people are like, well, what did you have? You can just be talking and saying you had this. It started off with I was losing feeling in my feet, and I was having numbness and tingling bilaterally, meaning both sides. I was having numbness in my hands going. My face was starting to tingle. I had twitching in my muscles. And then eventually the last thing that I noticed was my legs started to go weak every time I wanted to go up steps, okay? So I went through the whole diagnosis process, MRI, neurology exam, and that's the diagnosis I was given. But long story short, I'm healed of it, and I haven't looked back. So we're gonna keep going here. If you have digestive issues, you can also have weight loss issues. Eczema is huge. Skin eczema, psoriasis, rashes, hives, trying to think, acne. Your skin is your largest organ, right? And if you're not able to detoxify properly, you can get immune reactions and you can get toxins coming through your skin. And so we often will have people, when they heal their digestive tract, lo and behold, a lot of their skin issues clear up. And that's such a nice thing. It's such a confidence boost for many people, because who wants to have, all these skin issues and then they can't even wear a normal shirt, right? And then you have SIBO. That's one that people don't really talk a lot about, but that's a very painful digestive issue where it's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And your intestine has too much bacteria and you have to balance that out. And that's a whole process. We're not going to talk about that today. But then there's chronic fatigue and asthma. So I could keep going, right? There's so many symptoms that are related to poor digestive health. And the reason you're probably here is because you could maybe relate. But we're going to keep going because I have so much to share. And so one of the things that you guys have to understand, me being a natural doctor, right? My training is in everything natural. I don't use drugs to treat people, right? I will have to spend my time, like I do, studying on all the research that's out there, because there's nonstop research coming on just general nutrition and substances that will heal the body, okay? And so this is a phrase, all disease begins in the gut. Maybe you've heard that before. And maybe possibly you've heard that every time you eat or drink or expose ourselves to chemicals and hormones, we are either feeding disease or fighting it. And if you haven't heard that before, that's a good one to kind of, chew on that one. No pun intended. But chew on that for a moment. That's a big thought when it comes to what we consume, right? Three meals a day. How often are you nourishing or how often are you destroying, right? So this is one of those things where digestive health is immensely important to understand. And that's why you guys are here, right? A couple stats. We even wanted to say hi to a couple people. Oh, good. Love it. Hi, Laura. Hi, Jana. Awesome. Okay. Caitlin. Okay. It's like KTN Post. Okay, I don't know the full name. Anyways, hello. I'm glad you guys are joining me. I love this. Okay, so stats. I have to just throw a couple stats your way. And I apologize if I'm talking super fast, but it's because I have so much to get through and I don't want to waste your time with me here. But I think you guys know everyone has some kind of digestive situation happening. More Americans are hospitalized with digestive diseases than any other condition. That's crazy, right? And I think we've all been there, right? Something happened and it's like scary and we get rushed and then probably get put on an antibiotic because we don't know what else it is, right? And then there's the random follow-up, and then you have the long-term repercussions of not really knowing what happened or why you got sick with your digestive system to begin with. So diseases, the digestive diseases are ranked third among illnesses in total economic cost in the United States. That's pretty big too, pretty expensive. And I don't know about you guys, but with economy and the world and things happening, I am doing everything I can to avoid going into the hospitals or getting sick because it's expensive and there's a lot of things happening that you want to make sure that the resources are there to be able to treat you. But if you can avoid the hospitals, please do, right? And so that's been a really good benefit to getting healthy is you do avoid the hospitals more often. And then colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer among American men and women. So that's the second one, right? Huge. And it doesn't surprise me, but there's also a really good fact that's saying 70 to 80% of cancers are preventable, okay? 70 to 80% of cancers are preventable through diet and lifestyle, okay? So here you are, we're gonna learn some diet and lifestyle things. But before we get to the goodies, I have to teach you guys how your digestive system works. And so I've been an anatomy teacher for a couple years, and I love the body. I love learning about health and wellness, and even more so how our body works. So you're gonna get a little anatomy lesson with me on all the little digestive parts, okay? It's amazing, it's awesome. You gotta love that digestive system because it is your workhorse for you. And you can see just the little picture I have there. There's, like the stomach, the liver, the gallbladder is that little green thing right underneath the liver. You have the pancreas, which is kind of that yellowish thing behind the stomach. And then you have your small intestine and your large intestine. And then the esophagus is a little bit higher. So that's, in a nutshell, that is your digestive system. About 30 feet from your mouth to your anus, pretty long. And did you know your food can stay in your system for up to 40 hours? So that's almost 2 days, okay? And so one of the common questions I get asked is, how often should I have a bowel movement? And in the medical world, they'll usually say, well, you could go maybe twice a week as normal. In the natural realm, we definitely want you having a bowel movement every day. And some people actually will have multiple bowel movements every day. And not in like a diarrhea, all right? It's big formed bowel movements. So we'll keep that in mind as we move forward. The 4 main things that I want you guys to learn tonight is understanding how you digest, what are enzymes and this thing called hydrochloric acid, what are probiotics, how do they work. There's this term out there, maybe you've never heard of it, but it's called leaky gut syndrome. And it's kind of a big deal because it can kind of be how a disease starts for people. And then lastly, the biggest thing is, how do we fix your digestion, okay? So these are some big talking points. And a lot of people are like, well, okay, I don't want to be overwhelmed by this. This is kind of going to be like confusing too much information. I'm going to tell you right now, we're just going to work from the top down when it comes to learning how you digest. And you don't have to do everything all at once. Usually you want to work on what you can, and usually top down, because it can be overwhelming, but we're gonna clear that up for you guys, okay? So by working top down, that means I need to teach you about how the stomach works, right? And I would talk about like chewing and swallowing and all that, but the point on that is just you got to chew your foods pretty good. You don't want to be like wolfing them down, right? And not chewing down the food. So that's actually the first step, but you guys, I think, know that. You're smart enough. Now, the stomach, though, this is where a lot of good magic happens. And these are organs that nobody ever talks about, right? And so a lot of people get confused, even where the heck is my stomach? A lot of people point to the, like up here, other parts. And it's actually on your left side, right? Left side, right underneath that rib cage. That's where your stomach is. And it's like this little bag. It's a mixing bag, and it has all these fun little muscle layers. And the point is, when you have food come through, it has to start kind of grinding and moving it around so that it breaks food down. So it kind of stirs the food. Now, one thing people get confused about is the acid in the stomach. And a lot of times they'll be like, okay, well, I have heartburn or indigestion, so I'm going to take an antacid. Now, most people don't know that the stomach is actually supposed to be acidic, okay? It is supposed to have a pH of 2. And if you don't know anything about pH, it's basically acid or alkaline. And you want acid in your stomach for many, many, many reasons, okay? And the big ones are to be able to digest and break down your foods. Specifically, the harder to break down ones like your proteins. And so your stomach will have the food coming through. It'll just be starting to break it down. Think about also what you're eating. Like, let's just say something dropped on the floor or somebody sneezed on your food. Well, there's pathogens that got onto your food. Well, don't you think having acid in your stomach is a great way to kill said pathogen? Yes, it's designed for that, okay? So it's meant to sterilize and kill pathogens, viruses, bacteria, parasites. It's kind of our first, get everything kind of dead and broken down and pulverized, because we don't want that then alive in our system. So pH of 2 is very important. And if you don't have enough pH, enough acid in your stomach, you actually won't fully empty your stomach. So a lot of people will get it where they're getting heartburn or indigestion, and they're like, I didn't even eat anything bad. Because there's the whole spicy or acid foods or, just certain foods that people have to avoid because they think they're going to get heartburn. And while that can be true, for the most part, their stomach is just not going to empty because it's not breaking down very well. And so then, as a result, you get your food kind of erping up, if that makes sense. It kind of goes, it rises, and that can create the indigestion, the heartburn, and it doesn't feel good. If you've ever had it, it's really not a fun feeling. So then as a result, what do people do? They take antacids. Well, sure, I can see where that's kind of a good idea to maybe neutralize the acid, and it might help for a short term. But if you think about it, you're actually stopping the whole process, and you're making the pH more neutral, okay? So in modern medicine, they believe in getting rid of acid, or proton pump inhibitors, which is like your over-the-counter medications to stop acid production. And I don't know about you, but I want my food broken down. And that's not cool if my food's not breaking down. And it takes longer for it to get into than the rest of the systems. So one of the tricks that you can try is actually taking a hydrochloric acid supplement, or apple cider vinegar, or pickle juice, okay? And a fun story that I share pregnancy is a very common time when women will get heartburn because, well, the baby's pushing on things, and sometimes your production of acid goes down. And so whenever I was having heartburn, usually when it was more in my 3rd trimester, I would take a swig of pickle juice. And so I have a little pickle juice here. And it's one of those things that if you were just like suspecting, like, oh, do I have enough acid in my stomach? And I have a list of symptoms I'm going to go through. Or if you don't have enough acid in your stomach, then you can be like having issues, right? So I'm going to show you guys. This is the most simple thing. It works for a majority of my patients to just simply take a swig of pickle juice. And I like the taste of it. I haven't got used to the taste of the apple cider vinegar. It's a little more strong. You want to dilute that down or maybe add some juice to it. But the same premise is that you're providing acid for your stomach to break down the foods. And it's a fun trick that you can try. If you still are having issues, then we have to figure out other things down the road, which we're going to get to, okay? So I think the stomach is really important for you guys to understand how it works, because that's where the first major breakdown of your foods happen, okay? Now, if you are having issues with not having enough acid, it's actually called hypochlorhydria. And I'm saying it probably super botched up. Anyways, the point is it's low acid production. Okay, and so some of the common symptoms that you'll have is feeling like you want to eat even though you're not hungry, feeling too full after just a regular meal, indigestion or irping. It's kind of that, like, you feel it like kind of a burpy, okay, gas or flatulence that's stinky. So then this is a result, once that food does make it further into your digestive tract, and hasn't been fully broken down, or it hasn't had a good chance to break down in the stomach, the rest of your body has to make up for it, and you can get kind of stinky, not good smelling bowels or flatulence, okay? And then bloating, constipation, diarrhea, soreness or burning in your mouth, stomach upset, cramping, undigested food in the stool, nausea, and then heartburn, right? So I think a lot of us can maybe relate that we've probably had something of that at some point. Now, we don't always have low acid, but definitely stress will make a difference when it comes to your acid production. And then hands down, the older we get, the less acid and digestive enzyme production we produce, okay? So there's something to keep in mind. You'll want to support how your stomach digests foods, okay? And that's usually supporting with good acid amount. I know it sounds backwards. Some of you are probably freaking out because you're like, oh, but I'm on a medication to stop acids. Well, then I would just suggest maybe finding a functional nutrition doctor to walk you through it and handhold if you're kind of freaking out about swigging some pickle juice or apple cider vinegar, okay? All right, I got to move on. So now the small intestine, this is so cool. This is a very long portion of your digestive tract, 22 feet long. They call it your second brain. My picture is kind of cutting out the little words there. It's the second brain for many, many reasons. Has a lot of neurotransmitters, and it has such as serotonin, and serotonin's like your mood neurotransmitter. It also has a lot of neurons. So your small intestine is very important when it comes to mental health and mood. Many people didn't know that. The other things that happen here are enzymes. We make a lot of enzymes in our digestive tract. The small intestine, more so, not as many in the large intestine. Now the job is that now you've had this acidic food that's come in, and now the small intestine has to neutralize it. And then also on top of that, it has to further break down the foods with enzymes, okay? And this is very important that further breakdown happens, because if you don't get further breakdown of your foods, you're going to have even more issues of, it's called gut putrefaction. Big old saying, but basically undigested food in your digestive tract equals food putrefying or fermenting or rotting. And it just means bloating, stinky gas, stinky bowels, just not fun stuff, okay? Also, this is where a lot of your immune system resides. Maybe you've heard that 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And the reason being, if you have pathogens or parasites or things that are making their way through, you want your immune system to mount a response to go after and kill said pathogen. Right? So that makes sense. It's the first things coming into our body. We got to protect ourselves, otherwise we'd probably be dead, right? It's really cool biology and physiology. Food's held here for about 4 hours so that you can absorb 90% of your nutrients, and you definitely want all those nutrients to be absorbed. Otherwise, right, you can be iron deficient, B deficient. It's just called malabsorption, where you're just not getting your nutrients, and you can still be eating healthy, but if you're not breaking your foods down, unfortunately, yes, you can still have malabsorption, okay? And that's a functional thing. We already talked about how it's a lot of serotonin's created, neurons, it's your second brain. Oh, and then the fun part, there's this thing called the microbiome, right? And so the microbiome is good bacteria, and also bad bacteria and yeast and fungus, and overall it's a biome of microspecies that have to live in balance inside our colon and our digestive system. And I think we've all understood that if we have good bacteria that's more populous, it kind of keeps the bad bacteria and the yeast and the fungus kind of at bay. It kind of like controls them. A good example would be, like, let's just say you have urinary tract infections or yeast infections or jock itch or fungus on the skin. Increasing good flora on your skin and in your digestive tract, along with reducing sugar. A lot of times people just clear that right up. In fact, I've even had people when they have yeast infections or jock itch down below, because it always goes to where it's dark and moist, right? I've had where people can just simply make coconut oil and a probiotic capsule, and they kind of mix them together, and you just kind of rub it down there, and believe it or not, it actually populates the skin flora with good species. And then you'll notice some of the urinary tract infection symptoms and the itchy jock itch stuff that can happen to people will start to go away, because you're controlling the yeast. You're putting good microbes to say, yeast, you don't belong here, only the good stuff, okay? So that's really important to have a good microbiome. We're going to get to that a little bit more in depth, because that's how we're going to talk about how you heal your gut, one of the things. And then other ways to support the small intestine is enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics. We're going to get to all that. Bone broths, colostrum. So I just have a list of things that eventually, don't worry, I will have opportunity for you guys to get this all in one spot, so you don't have to take a million notes or screenshot a million things, unless you want to, right? Okay, so that's the small intestine. Very important, very long, 23 feet. That's because you have a lot of absorption that needs to happen for health, right? Every single day we need all our food and the nutrients to go where they need to go so that we can be human and live and be healthy. Okay, the liver. This is such a fun one. I feel like someday I need to do just a liver talk on its own, on just the extreme importance on liver function. Okay, so I'll save that for another, but we're going to talk quickly what it does in case you didn't know what it does for you. So if you don't have your liver functioning, even for one day, you can say bye-bye. That's how important your liver is. It's your main detoxifying organ. It's what keeps us to be able to live in this world to begin with, right? We're exposed to heavy air pollution, horrible water, right? It's filtered, but it's still not good for you. The processed chemicals and the toxins in foods, medications and drugs are very toxic. Alcohol is toxic, right? And so without our liver, we'd pretty much be dead because it's just toxic. It would kill our cells. So the liver's job is to take all that, break it down, put it into a form that's not toxic, and then you either pee it out or you poop it out, because you don't want it circulating back into your system, right? Those toxins have to be deactivated. Okay, so taking care of your liver is huge. It also does something where it makes bile, and bile is a green substance that breaks down fat for you. So some people, if they've ever had gallbladder disease, they had gallbladder stones and things like that, where then anytime they had fat, they would get like this pain in their stomach or pain in their shoulder, which is usually gallbladder disease signs, and then they'll get them removed. But then they notice after that they have a hard time having anything fatty. Well, it's because the little gallbladders, the sac that stores bile, is gone. So you still produce bile from your liver, which is great, but it's just not as efficient. And so then I'll have patients end up taking ox bile supplement to further help them break down fats if they did indeed have gallbladder disease, okay? Filters 1.4 liters every minute. Cool fact, it can be damaged and grow back for you. All medicines are broken down in your liver before they go and do their job. Breaks down hormones, makes hormones. Very important for when I talk about hormones in my next class. We're going to talk a lot about liver support there. And believe it or not, the way to support your liver is through bitter herbs. And a lot of people are like, well, what are bitter herbs? Well, they're kind of funny names like dandelion, milk thistle. There's all sorts of other, like burdock root. But basically it's like it goes in and it supports and supplies the detoxification pathways in your liver. And then other nutrients that help your liver: magnesium, glutathione, sulfur, which is found in your cruciferous vegetables and eggs and onions and garlic, right? The things that kind of smell sulfury, you need those for your liver. Vitamin C is huge, B vitamins, choline is found in eggs. And then you actually can eat liver to support your liver. I have not eaten liver ever in my life, but I have taken what's called desiccated liver, and it works really well for women's issues because it's high in iron and it helps with like CoQ10 and things like that. But anyways, that's a side note. Okay, large intestine. We're almost done with just the anatomy of everything. You guys are doing awesome. Thank you for listening. I know this is a lot of kind of science at 8 o'clock at night, but I tell you it's going to get better after this, okay? Now the large intestine is where it's like the last area your I guess you could say your food has to go before it gets eliminated. And it's 10 feet long, and it's where a lot of your water is absorbed. And so this is a great spot where it's responsible for keeping you hydrated because, well, it's kind of the last ditch effort for like, okay, body, I need hydration. So sometimes they say if you're constipated, drink more water, right? Because your body's just like trying to like hang on to whatever water it can. And so it'll take it out of your stool and then constipate it or make it hard, right? And so in addition, you also have more bacteria in your large intestine. So there's about 500 species that live here. They're really good at helping to form the stool. And I tell people that when they have a good probiotic or they have, let's just say they're getting really good copious amounts of fermented foods or just good, the good balance ratio of like probiotics and fiber and water, you will have the best bowel movements. Like you're gonna be, I'm sorry to say it, but you'll poop like a champ. And it's like victorious when you can eliminate And it's like all is well with the world, right? When you have a really good bowel movement. And so usually I tell people a really good bowel movement is almost like 2 banana shapes, right? So it's like, the shape of a banana, long formed, not too hard, not too runny. But if you have 2 lengths, oh man, that is a pooping champion, okay? And so if you are having those, good for you. Keep going with what you're doing, and you probably are having good health. You're noticing you maybe don't have a lot of the digestive issues. But let's just say you're not, and you're having back and forth loose stool, watery, diarrhea, constipation, whatever, the in-between. You want to pay attention to what is your probiotic doing for you? Are you doing an okay amount of fiber? Are you breaking down your foods? All these things, okay? So the funny thing of all this, do you watch your stools when you go to the bathroom every day? And I'm going to ask this of my people who are still with me. You can comment on here. Are you a stool watcher? Okay. Do you watch every time you eliminate? And I will say, yep, me, I do. And it's only because, for me, it's a gauge of how is my digestive system doing. And yeah, I can usually be like, okay, I need to drink more water. Or, oh yeah, I didn't get a lot of fiber in today. Or, okay, good. So I see people are watching their stools. Good. Well, it's usually the moms too, because they've been used to watching their kids' stools. I will say, whenever I ask my male patients of this, they're like, no, I don't watch that. And I'm like, what? You gotta look. Okay. All right. So most of you are watching your stools. So yes, good job. Now, how to support this? Like I said, probiotics, fiber, enzymes. But you'll see that if you are supporting from the top all the way down, you will have where everything is doing its job, so that technically by the time it leaves you, it should leave you in a beautiful package, okay? All right, so that is how anatomy works for your digestive tract. I wanted you guys just to get that background so you could kind of put to words and pictures of like how things are working and where things go. And so when we start to talk about some of these ways to support your gut, you can kind of put it in the correct area. Because I've had a lot of confusion when it comes to people like, well, aren't enzymes the same as probiotics? And so people get really confused about that kind of digestive health situation. And so now you know, okay, so we're going to go through that. Now, the 4 R's of gut health. We've talked about like who gets things, what happens, what are the symptoms. Well, now we want to get to the meat, right? We want to teach you guys what are some of the big, huge steps that you can understand when it comes to gut health healing, okay? And it's not like you have to do all this at once. It's kind of a, you know your body best, but it's also understanding how, when I'm having this symptom, what could be going wrong where, okay? So the 4 R's of gut health, this is a very common thing that a lot of natural doctors, this is just a protocol that a lot of us just know and understand, okay? So typically, we got to talk about removing foods or items or things that are causing inflammation and kind of destroying our digestive system until we can get it healed, okay? So I'm going to talk about some inflammatory triggers. Most of you know it's going to be your gluten, your dairy. I'm going to talk more about nuts. Sugar, of course, that one's just one of the biggest culprits for any health issue. FODMAPs, if you've not heard of that, those are foods that can kind of create more gas in your system, and so some people have to avoid FODMAP foods. You can look up what those are, but that's kind of a term some people aren't familiar with. GMOs are going to be like your genetically modified organisms. I don't know if you guys understand this. However, the foods that we most consume, wheat, corn, rice, soy, those main big grains that are, farmed in the United States and heck all over the world, they are probably 80 to 90% genetically modified by now. That's just what our agricultural system has done to all the grains and then other ones too. But genetically modified organisms, they are made so much so that you have to have the insecticides and the pesticides and the herbicides sprayed on those specific seeds. And a lot of us have heard of the Roundup Ready weed killer, but it's also Roundup is also sprayed on our crops. And so about 70 to 90% of our crops are genetically modified and sprayed with Roundup. Now, the reason that's an issue, not only does it cause cancer, one of the big things that it does to your digestive system is the chemical is called glyphosate. Glyphosate kills this pathway in bacteria, okay? And it also kills in weeds and other things, so that, the point is to get more yield of the crops to feed the world and the masses and all that stuff. So they mean well, but it's creating such a backlash of health that we're kind of now all stuck. So avoiding genetically modified foods is important because that glyphosate kills good and bad bacteria in our gut systems, okay? And so you're starting to see a lot of people with gluten sensitivities, food allergies that were not around 50 years ago. 50 years ago, these modern farming practices were not in place. We were not spraying our foods with so many chemicals, and now we are, and it's worldwide. There's a couple countries that don't use genetically modified organisms. They've outlawed them. So Europe is one of them. And that's one of the reasons that I'll hear patients be like, I can go to Europe and I can have bread there and not react. But if I have bread in the United States, I get sick, okay? So if you've ever wondered, a lot of it has to do with our farming practices, okay? Obviously, removing alcohol, stress, it's huge for anything. Processed foods, because they're just full of chemicals and dyes. Parasites, I'm not going to get into parasites because that's its whole other talk, but it's very common to get a parasite infection and not even know it. But some of the common symptoms of parasite infections are more gassy, more bloated. You start to get iron deficient, so you can look more pale, loose stools, very low energy. So those are some of the main ones, but you can look those up if you suspect you have a parasite, and it can be anywhere, not just a third world country, okay? And then bad water is crazy because it's so full of, chlorine and fluoride and other toxic chemicals, and so I highly recommend to people to get a really good water filtration system if they can. I really like Berkey waters filters, or these big, really pretty stainless steel. They sit on your counter, and they're kind of considered one of the best water filters that everyone loves. And so they're called Berkey water filters. And then of course, drugs can cause bowel disruption. Birth control pills alone, if people didn't know this, are very destructive to the gastrointestinal system, okay? Replacing nutrient-dense foods. We're going to talk about enzymes, what those are. Hydrochloric acid, you can add those to your diet. Reinoculate, we're going to talk about probiotics, prebiotics, fermented foods here in a little bit. And then the last thing that we have to talk about is repairing the gaps and the holes. And if you remember the very beginning slide, I talked about this leaky gut syndrome. We'll get there, okay? Because that's kind of a tricky one for people to what are you talking about? So let's keep moving. You guys are doing awesome. Like I said, I'm talking so fast, but this is such good meat, right? Good digestible meat. All right, so you guys are doing great. So removing foods, inflammatory foods. Now, when I tell people that they're having digestive issues, think of your body is on fire. And it is, rightfully so, because inflammation is just happening inside your digestive tract. And that inflammation, it's hot, it's irritated, it's just like stirred up, and it's not getting a break. And so certain foods can be actually literally just keeping on pouring gasoline onto that fire. And you're just thinking, oh, well, maybe it'll go away, or oh, maybe that drug that the doctor gave me will fix it. But I'll just keep eating the same foods and I'll expect the same, like I'll get healed, right? So no, it does not work that way. I talked about how certain foods are really hard on our systems, and you have to remove these foods if you want to heal your digestive tract, okay? Good news, most of them are the really bad foods we eat as Americans, okay? Bad news, a lot of people are addicted and they're like, well, what else do I eat? Luckily, you guys aren't that crowd of people. But yeah, it's usually my younger patients who love their bagels, love their pizza, love their pancakes, love their corn, love their cereal. Oof, right? Chicken nuggets, chips, pasta, crackers. Peanut butter I say because we're going to talk about some of the toxins that can be in certain nuts. But anyways, you get the gist. These are the very common foods that we eat as Americans, and so no wonder we're all sick. No wonder we're all heading to the hospital with horrible symptoms and horrible digestive tract situations, right? So you gotta get it out of there. You gotta take the gasoline out so that the fire can die down and heal. And then I tell people, after you've done this for a while and you've healed and you've done all the work, you know what? You can actually enjoy these foods in moderation here and there. And that's one of the things I had to do when I was healing from multiple sclerosis. I had to go 100% get these nasty foods out of my life because I wanted to be healed 100%. And then now that I'm healed, I can have some of these items and I don't get my symptoms, whereas before I would get a flare-up of my symptoms when I would have these foods. Now I don't get the flares. But then again, I'm not going back to that same lifestyle because you know what? It feels good to feel good. And it feels good to not be reliant on medications and a broken medical system, okay? So I'm going to get a little bit laying down the law here, but this stuff works, okay? Now, willpower is tough, but I will tell you, you don't have to do it all, right? You can take it in steps. But I want to talk about this next one, okay? So removing those gasoline foods. And I'm sorry if there's a little bit too much crowding to show this slide. But have you ever noticed, and maybe you guys can comment, have you ever noticed that oh sorry, I see Taylor. I love my bagels. I'm so sorry to ruin it. Bagels are one of those that are just not a nutritious food. I'm just gonna tell you, I'm so sorry. They're just not. Anyways, not to be mean about it, but yes, those are ones to get out of the system when you want to heal the digestive tract. But maybe in the comment, okay? This did happen to me, and I have to give you my story. But I used to be lactose intolerant, okay? And have you ever had it where you used to be able to handle certain foods or maybe even dairy, and then all of a sudden something happened, you had a stressful situation, or maybe you were, got sick, pregnancy will do it, or you just got older and now you can't tolerate certain foods. Have you guys ever noticed that? We'll see if you guys can respond. Yeah. So while you're responding, I'm going to tell you my story. So I used to be able to have dairy for the most part, no problem. Now I did get sick with multiple sclerosis, and so I cut out dairy for a while, but I could have it here and there and not have any reactions. And then I got pregnant, and it was after my second pregnancy, that I noticed I could not handle dairy whatsoever. And it was the weirdest thing because I would have like a little piece of cheese or maybe a sip of milk. And before you know it, I'm running to the bathroom diarrhea and cramped, like the cramping, retching pain in your colon, and you're like, what is this, right? And then you start to break out in the sweats because it's so painful. And I was like, this is not good. Okay, I can't have any dairy, right? And so at that point, I was still working through healing from multiple sclerosis. And for me, I was having a lot of stress. I was having poor foods. And what ended up happening because of pregnancy and hormones and diet and lifestyle and stress, my digestive system stopped working, okay? And so I stopped being able to handle certain foods, like, like Laura, gluten and dairy, but especially dairy. Okay, so everybody can relate to this. And so one time, and I didn't even realize this, but I was also very deficient in good bacteria. And so I'll get to that. But one of the things that I did is I did this like period of time where I just got a lot of good bacteria into my system. And all of a sudden it like started to heal my gut. I was able to handle certain foods. And then I could start having dairy. And I tell you what, it was just like, what? It was like I won a medal or something because I could have dairy again. And I was like, my life, what? No way, right? And it was all because I was messed up with my digestive tract and really deficient in the proper amounts of good bacteria, okay? So I have to talk a little funny side story when it comes to how your digestive tract works, because you can also have where things shut off. So you can have genes turn off, and I fully believe this also happened to me, that the things that made enzymes in my colon stopped working, okay? And I'll tell you what happens, okay? This is a cool study done. It's called it's like the agouti gene. You can't really see it there, but the agouti gene is basically a gene that's kind of controls for obesity. There's 3 little mice. There's a study done, and these 3 little mice are all identical, okay? Like genetically identical. And you can see they don't look genetically identical, right? They look completely different. So the scientists found that if you feed a diet that's healthy, the mouse will look brown and skinny. If you don't feed the mice something healthy, they will become obese, and the change of the color of the fur was because a gene was turned off. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you. In normal healthy mice, the agouti genes are kept in the off position by the epigenome. This is what controls your DNA to do its thing, okay? It's like it's like right above it, and it's like the light switch that says, okay, go make this enzyme, go do this, repair this, kind of a thing. And that's called the epigenome. And it attaches these things called methyl groups to the corresponding region of DNA. In yellow and or obese mice, however, the same genes are not methylated. Thus, these genes are expressed or turned on. The turning on of this single gene results in an apparent freak of nature, and mice whose agouti gene is on also are more likely to suffer from diabetes and cancer as adults. So this might sound like, what are you reading to me? The point of this is there's certain nutritious foods that you can eat, and it'll turn on your genes or off your genes, okay? They found also in this study that, let's just say, the gene was turned on or off to be unhealthy in the mom, the same thing gets passed on to baby, okay? Now, that doesn't mean anyone's doomed. It means you can still kind of fix your genetics to turn on and off, which is why I fully believe you diet and lifestyle, like you can be given some bad DNA or some bad genetics, But if you control your diet and lifestyle to not turn on and off these genes and create disease, that's big, right? We've all seen these studies where there's twins where one got cancer and one didn't, and then you can kind of follow their lifestyle, and like the one twin was like alcoholic, poor diet, divorce, like just like really bad lifestyle, and they're the one that ends up with cancer. So there's tons of these studies done out there, and it's based off of turning on and off genes. It's crazy, okay? So this doesn't mean you're doomed. What this means is I'm going to give you guys more tips and tricks on how to make sure these genes don't go faulty, okay? One of the things that was cool in there, if you see, it's called methyl. It says the methylated. This is just a side bonus tip. When you're taking B vitamins, if you look on the back of your vitamin, little supplement thing, you want your B vitamins to say methylcobalamin, okay? They're called methyl donors. And that's why B vitamins are really good for your DNA. All right, moving on. So there's a couple toxins that I wanted to let you guys know that turn on and off our genes. I'm going to just quickly go through these because we don't realize, it's like what we eat, but it's also what we're exposed to. And so it's even more important to understand like why we can get messed up sometimes with our digestion. Okay, so air pollution, we can't control that, right? So we're gonna have to make sure our digestive system is better so that when it comes into our system, it doesn't hit us, right? It goes in and out because we have good detoxification happening in our liver. Molds and mycotoxins, we can control these by avoiding some pretty bad grains. They're found in peanuts, corn, grains, coffee, alcohol, dried fruit, sugar. Now I love coffee, right? You can actually look for coffee brands out there that will actually say mycotoxin free. Arsenic, that's the reason I don't do rice. I get plenty of carbs other ways. I do enjoy rice here and there, but rice is very high in arsenic, and that turns off my genes, okay? Fruit juice, I stopped drinking fruit juice when I needed to heal, because not only because of the sugar content, unfortunately, and two, it's high in arsenic. Who'd have thought, right? Water. So I'm trying not to be doom and gloom here, but this is what we're up against, right? It's like we're set up to fail, I feel. So in a way, we gotta like know how to arm ourselves so that this stuff's bombarding us every day. And so we were like, nope, I got my shield, I know what to do. Nutrient deficiencies. They have found that if you are deficient in B vitamins, choline, vitamin D, selenium, folate, so those are all like your really good foods for you. If you're deficient in those, that too will kind of turn off your DNA and your gene function, okay? So it's really important for that. Heavy metals, mercury, lead, cadmium, those are everywhere. We can't get away from that, but we can detoxify them and poop them out. The Pops World War II. Yeah, Jean, I'm sorry, coffee. I know, but don't worry, you can find healthy coffee. But there's these chemicals called polyorganic something. Anyways, it's a long name. And it's basically all the chemicals that were made in the World War II era. And it's like your PCBs, it's like Agent Orange, and then there's a bunch of other things that just are in our environment. They've stopped making these things, but they're kind of still around. Again, we can't control that, but we got to control what else we can put into our body. And then BPA, and I'm sorry it's kind of covered. This one I'm going to talk more in depth about because BPA is everywhere. And you can be very, very just proactive on making sure that you are just reducing your exposure to this toxin that's turning on and off your genes. And you're probably like, why are you talking about genes and turning them on and off with a digestion class? Well, it's all these chemicals that are coming through our system that turn off the genes in our gut and the bacteria that all are supposed to do their job of making enzymes, okay? So that's why I'm talking about ways to get this out of your system so that you don't have to deal with DNA damage, is what I'm saying, okay? So this one was a crazy, like, blew my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, what? Plastics? I already avoid them, but there's a couple like, what? How do I keep up with this? Okay, so plastics that mess with your DNA, if you ever go on and you see like the bottom of a container, and you can kind of see like it's like got the little triangle, it'll say like numbers. So this one says number 1. It's like a supplement, okay? So you want to look for the safe products, 1, 2, 4, and 5. The ones that you want to avoid, that you don't want any food to be in or drinking anything, is 3, 6, and 7. For the most part, they're not out there, but they kind of still are. But what's been the most crazy that I was like, no way, I can't believe this. This is so bad for us, is the black plastics, okay? And they said the study found that 40% of the black plastics contained heavy metals such as cadmium, mercury, and lead. And then these metals, as well as the phthalates and flame retardants, are known carcinogens that can also cause serious development and reproductive damage, even at low levels. And so I have a little picture there, and it's going to be like your coffee cup lids. It's going to be your black plastics that we reheat our food in. It's like the black utensils. And then also the cooking utensils that like we all flip our eggs with, right? I was like, no, you gotta be kidding me. Yes. Okay, so good news is there's alternatives. Cook with glass, fine stainless steel, bamboo, paper. So luckily we can avoid all that, but I just wanted you guys to know, I think a lot of us are still consuming or dealing with these black plastics, and you might not be realizing it's like damaging you, okay? So that one's a fun one, okay? You guys are doing great. Ooh, silicone is really good too. You have a really good point, Jana. Forgot to mention that one. All right, so this talk and my sugar talk, they're longer because like I just have so much information that it's like, oh my goodness. You guys, it's just unreal, right? So I hope you're not just mind is like, what is, she's just so much information. Good news, these all get recorded, they get saved. So if you're like, I don't even know where to begin, she gave me so much information that was new, you get to take it in baby steps, okay? But for those who've already been here, done that, I'm giving you more good info, right? All right, now we're going to talk about probiotics, because this is where I was telling you I gave myself a little more good bacteria. I was, getting rid of toxins, getting rid of sugar, healed my MS, and then I was able to start breaking down dairy much better, right? I think some of you have heard how important probiotics are. Most of my patients, when they're coming through, they're like, yep, I'm on a probiotic. And I'm like, yay, good job, yay, you, okay? And 10% of us are only human. So basically what that means is we have so much bacteria on our skin, our mouth, our ears, inside our digestive system, everywhere. And it's 10-to-1 ratio, 10-to-1. So that means there's 10 times more bacteria cells on us and in us than human cells. Okay? Crazy. That's just like, what? Okay. So yes, that's how important those critters are for us, because without them, we would be getting sick. Any cut we would have, we'd die from some kind of bad bacteria, like you name it. So we need good bacteria to be our friends. And so when we're doing the whole antibacterial and the antibiotics and anti-everything sterilizing, it's a little concerning because we're actually creating issues right down the road that we maybe should look at these guys as our friends and not kill everyone. And so that is actually emerging science. They're looking at, instead of giving everybody antibiotics, they're looking at giving people more friendly bacteria, or seeing where they're deficient in certain types so that they can truly heal. And so one example is some patients, when they get, let's just say, C. difficile infection, and so it's called a C. diff infection, and the course of treatment is more antibiotics. Well, it's like, okay, well, that only works so often. So some people have been doing this radical way of healing people, and it's called fecal transplants. Okay. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of fecal transplants, because most people have not. Oh, sorry. I know some people's cooking utensils are all black. I'm so sorry. Okay, where do you find healthy coffee? You literally can just Google mold-free or mycotoxin-free coffee. And it's typically going to be very, they'll have a bunch of other lists of things that they avoid with like chemicals and pesticides and, sustainably sourced, all that stuff. Okay. Oh, wait, what's going on? Wait, your grandma's been dealing with what for 6 months? C. diff? That would be just so funny and ironic if that was what it was. Okay, well, if it is, then I'll wait for your response. So, Guy, you've heard of... Okay, crazy. Okay, not many people know about that. So, it sounds like... Talaria, what's your first name? How do you say your first name? Or is that actually how you say your first name? Anyway, so as she comes... So apparently her grandma has been dealing with C. difficile infection. And you have to tell us if it was after an Okay, Dana. Okay, so Dana, you have to tell us if it was after an antibiotic course. Oh, it's your gamer name. I love it. Oh my gosh, I know you, Dana. Oh my goodness. The little circles, I cannot see people's faces. So thanks for bearing with me. The point I'm trying to make, sometimes with the bacterial infections, it gets so out of hand that antibiotics don't do anything anymore. And so they're doing these things called fecal transplants, where they're taking the stool of healthy individuals. They filtrate out all the brown stuff, and what you're left with is the good flora, the microbiome of a healthy individual. And then they either give it to them in a supplement form, or they give it to them rectally and cures them. It's like this miracle. It's like amazing. And they've been doing it for years. It's just now becoming more popular because, well, we're having more antibiotic resistant situations happening, okay? But that's so funny, Dana. I did not know that. Oh, yep. Fecal transplant, people. It's up and coming, okay? And then, by the way, I'll say, when you hang out with healthy friends, this sounds gross, but you can, hang out with them enough and like talking and like hugging, you can actually transfer good bacteria to them. Okay. All right. So what affects your gut microbiome, or even just your biome all over? Antibiotics, you guys know that. GMOs, I talked about that. Environment, that's going to be all your like just stuff coming at you. The hand antiseptic stuff that we're all doing, that's going to affect our hand flora. I do like just soap and water. I feel like that's better for us. But anyways, it still kills things. But anyways, tap water, we talked about the chlorine can kill good bacteria. There's toxins in there. Birth control pills really mess with our gut flora. Other medications can. And of course, diet and life and stress and all that stuff. But some people, right off the bat, they just might not even get a good chance when it comes to populating your good bacteria in your system, because the very first exposure is at birth. Many people did not know this. They're actually confused by it. You were actually sterile inside your mom's womb, and when you come through the canal vaginally, you get all of mom's flora, right? Covering you. So that's your first seeding, is what they say, the exposure to friendly flora. And especially if mom is healthy individual and taking probiotics and eating a diverse diet of fermented foods, and she's got good gut health, right? And you can even get it, let's just say, even if you had a C-section, that's really important to have that, they say that skin on skin, if you can, as much as possible with your infant, because you're transferring the good flora. And then breastfeeding is really important. And then, even every time you kiss your baby, you are giving your baby your flora, okay? And that's all great, because that's supposed to happen. Now, keep in mind, when mom goes on antibiotics, it affects baby. And I've even had it where we just start putting infants right on probiotics right away. It's just how it is. We're just in this world where most of us are not getting enough exposure to good bacteria, and diets aren't what they used to be, right? Back in the days where everything was fermented. Now everything's chemically processed, right? So I'll even have mom start doing probiotic powder on her nipple, or make it a suspension in liquid and just kind of squirt it in the mouth. You can put it in the bottle. You can make probiotic baby butt paste. So when my kids were little, we took coconut oil, some lavender, and we took some probiotic capsules, and I made a little paste, and I put it on their butt every time we cleaned them up, so that they wouldn't get yeast infections or rashes because of, the floral changes, okay? So there's all sorts of tips and tricks, but at birth is where it really matters, and especially if you put your baby on any antibiotics, you really got to make sure that they then are being populated with good bacteria, or they have the food opportunities to repopulate, like, good yogurts and, other things. But for the most part, everybody's doing baby probiotics these days, okay? So it leads me to the next question. People are like, well, what type of probiotics should I take? $1 million question. There are so many good probiotic brands out there. I just tell people, look for it where it says billions of population. And when you look at the back of it, you can see all these funny little names, like, they're all like long Latin names: Lactobacillus acidophilus, Bifidobacterium lactis, Longium bifidum, right? It's just like I'm speaking Latin. And I say that because these are all strains of different species of bacteria, and we need a diverse profile of bacteria on our body, okay? Because everything's got to be in balance. And so I usually tell you, start with one, try it, finish it, go on to a next new brand, because I don't want you taking the same ones over and over and over and over, because then you're only getting those same ones over and over and over, and that's still imbalance, okay? So that's a tip that I like to give when it comes to probiotics, and it works pretty good. And you don't always have to take probiotics, just so you know. Usually they should set up shop, and if you're pooping good, pooping like a champ, like I said, then you can maybe take a break from your probiotics. And then I always do tell people, I think I said this earlier, that if you started a probiotic and all of a sudden you're pooping like a champ, that has been a good probiotic for you. And you're like, yes, I needed that. My body was responding well. Okay, so now we're on to replacing. Okay, we're getting there. You guys are sticking with me. Thank you. I apologize, it's going long, but it's good info, right? Now, when you want to replace healthy foods, right, because we're getting rid of inflammatory foods, you want to think about foods that are nourishing, foods that are going to be anti-inflammatory, foods that are easy to digest, because at this point, you're not digesting well to begin with, right? And so you got to give your body a chance to catch up, because you don't want to make it work too hard before it can get there. So I really like to recommend to people your veggies. If you're going to eat your veggies, try to steam them or saute them. Reason being, that cooking process starts to break down the bonds for you, so that when it goes into your system, you don't have to do all that work with something that you don't have, okay? It'll get there. Like, you'll be able to have raw foods again. But I have patients where, like, they have a piece of lettuce and it clears out of them and they're just like, I can't even have lettuce, right? And then they feel defeated because they can't have healthy food. Well, that's because you can't even break it down yet. So we got to back step, get you, supported, and get your body going again, and then it'll be fun to see the foods you can enjoy again down the road, okay? Sprouted breads and sprouted nuts. There's this thing that seeds have these like hard shells, or like the brown on the seeds, or let's just say the in wheat berries when they make flour, there's this chemical called phytates. And phytates are naturally occurring on the seeds and the grain berries. It's there to protect the seed from like birds and whatnot. But for us, it's actually toxic to us, okay? And so phytates, and you can look this up, phytates they create anti-absorption of iron and magnesium and calcium. So a lot of these breads that we're eating and nuts with like the brown coverings, like almonds, can be really hard on our digestive system, okay? Now, with that being said, if you've always wondered, well, what the heck, I've seen this word sprouted, but I never knew what it was or the whole point of it. Well, sprouted breads and sprouted nuts soak the seeds and the berries in water, and it activates it, and it creates it so that enzymes turn on and break down the phytate, okay? So it's this beautiful thing, just old school ways of how traditionally foods were cooked or made, and we have lost that art of sprouting and fermenting foods. And so if you are like, oh, but I really want to have bread, well then look for a sprouted bread, okay? And if you watched my sugar video, sprouted sourdough bread, that's like, yeah, that's the best one out there, okay? Warm foods versus cold foods are really important, because you don't want to have your body have to warm up the food. So a lot of times they say when you're eating or drinking your meals, you want to have maybe a tea with your meal. That's better digestion. It's actually very commonly practiced in Asia. They don't have any iced or cold drinks with their meals ever. It's usually warm or tea, or hardly anything, because you don't want to dilute down the digestive enzymes. So one thing that I've stopped doing is when I eat with my meals, I don't ever have ice in them. I'll usually just be like room temperature with like lemon or lime, because it has like a little acid, right? It supports the digestion. Or like green tea or peppermint tea that you can kind of, maybe have instead of an ice cold big old glass with your big old heavily, hard to break down meal, right? Okay. Let's see here. I have a couple questions. Roasted veggies, yes. Yep, roasted is completely fine. Sprouted veggies, are you thinking like sprouts like Brussels sprouts, or you're thinking like broccoli sprouts or alfalfa sprouts? You can respond. I'll keep going. So soups are really nourishing for our digestive tract, especially bone broth. And bone broth has it where if you make it yourself and you get out all that gelatin and the nutrients from the bones, it actually goes in and it helps to heal the lining of your gut. And there's a reason that people say when they're sick and you give them chicken soup, well, it's the old traditional style, not the canned or like your salted, Lowry seasoning, or like the cubes of chicken. No, that's not legit soup. That's just salt flavored water. So if you made the traditional chicken bone broth soup, or even beef broth, That's what they meant by chicken soup being nourishing for when you're sick, is because it has nutrients to go in and support your gut, which is 80% of your immune system, right? Okay, so Jana responded, there's kits sold online for sproutings that have veggies. Oh yeah, yes, I have one of those. Those are very nutritious foods, very high in something called glutathione. It's a very important antioxidant for detoxing. I love sprouts. Those are just excellent, excellent. And yes, they're going to be easy to digest because it's the seed itself, and it's just like, it's like fresh nutrition, and very important for people who want to prevent cancer. So it's very highly recommended when it comes to those sprouts. Okay, keep going on here. Fermented foods. Granted, if they have like not hormone laden and full of sugar, so I usually try to look for my fermented foods that have the least amount of sugar, organic. I do like to actually look at the yogurt containers, and you know it's a good one when it has a bunch of different like Latin names, so that's kind of fun to see. Whole Foods is a great resource for really good yogurt options. Kefir, it's a drink. Goat cheese, I love goat cheese. It's really easily to digest. Buffalo cheese, that's been one of my favorites that I get at Whole Foods. It's like they have buffalo ricotta or buffalo mozzarella. So good, easy to digest. You don't get that like icky feeling like if you've had too much dairy, like I used to, right? But some people can handle these better. Sheep cheese, raw dairy, A2 dairy. So these are all types of dairy that people can break down much better, okay? All right. Okay, we'll see you later, Guy. I know I'm talking a long time tonight, but you can always fast forward to hear the rest of it. It's the power of technology. Pickles, I love pickles, right? Pumpkin squash, sweet potatoes. These are all things that are easy to digest. And this is just because, like, let's just say you're really sick and you just can't break down anything. These are going to be the foods that you're going to want to try to focus on. But yes, you can get other things in. I do want to say one thing about Instant Pot meats, okay? I love making my meats in the Instant Pot because of the pressure and the time. But if you've ever cooked your meats in the Instant Pot, you'll notice that it's really broken down and it's really easily shredded. That's because the pressure and the heat broke down the protein bonds of the meat that much better, right? It's like all soft and like, ooh, chewy. That's really good to have you be able to break that down before you have to do it in your stomach. So that aids in digestion, okay? All right, we're getting there. You guys are so patient. I love this. Enzymes. I want to talk about enzymes because a lot of people are confused about this. And this is one of the really popular things that I will actually prescribe to patients. And enzymes, so like here's an example of an enzyme. Enzymes are produced in our stomach, not our stomach a little bit, definitely when we're chewing. So we'll have like, if you know, like when you're like salivating, when you know something's coming and you're like, ooh, I'm salivating. Those are enzymes coming, specifically like something called amylase, and it like breaks down starches. Okay, other ones are there too, and then all the way down into your small intestine. And you have these enzymes that break your foods down further. So for carbohydrates, you have these little things that are called amylase, maltase, lactase. It's going to break it down into single molecules. Proteins, you got these fun little names. Breaks it down into single amino acids. And then your fats get broken down into fatty acids. So if you're seeing the little chemistry and the biology here, the point of all this is all these molecules need to be single molecules to absorb into your gut, to go into your blood and your cells and go and nourish your system, okay? If you're not breaking things down, well, they stay in bigger clumps, and that's what I was talking about, the undigested food particles causing a lot of bowel and like gas and bloating, okay? If you want to look for special digestive enzymes, Here's one as an example. This is what I like to look for. You have hydrochloric acid, right? This one's a good one. It's hydrochloric acid, ox bile. You have like other things like papaya, and then you have a bunch of ACEs. So that's what this one is actually, okay? And I just found this at Hy-Vee. I'm not picky about my enzymes, but I'm picky about what's in them so that I can break my foods down and be efficient, okay? And so I'll have this here and there when I know I'm gonna have like a heavy meal and I wanna be able to just not have like the gross feeling. And this really prevents it, okay? Oh, another side note, if you get hiccups a lot, you're not digesting, okay? It's because your stomach is getting irritated and flared, and so then it kind of flares the diaphragm and then gives you hiccups. So one of the things I'll do is I will take some peppermint essential oil and I'll just pop it on and I'll lick it, and that'll calm my hiccups and it'll calm my digestive system from being like spastic. And then I'll definitely take some enzymes, or I'll swig some pickle juice, okay? So these are all little tips and tricks that I'll do when, let's just say you've overdone it, you overindulged, and you're like, wow, I don't feel good. Well, there's ways to support that so you don't have long-term issues. All right, we're on the home stretch. I see a couple people are joining and leaving based off it's late. Hi, Ethan. Good to see you. Okay, so leaky gut syndrome. This is that one this is understanding what the heck is going on. If you can go after and heal leaky gut syndrome, a lot of diseases will disappear, okay? So the point of all this, okay, hold on. Dana has a question. What about heartburn every night right before bed? Yes, that is, it's a sign that you're not producing enough acid, and it's possibly then your stomach isn't emptying the contents. And then when we go to lay down and we're like, it's just things are staying stagnant in the stomach. So I usually have people do a swig of pickle juice or take some of the hydrochloric acids. Like here's an example of, you can take hydrochloric acid supplement. They're not too big. You just take them with one with each meal. And the point of this is, I'm not trying to make you take all these supplements. The point is, I'm trying to let your body get a chance and a break as you've been removing the foods and you're getting your digestion working for you again, and you're removing toxins, and then you're starting to poop again. So it's a situational thing that you have to commit to bettering your digestive tract, and then as things start to work, you don't need to be so reliant on these things, if that makes sense, okay? All right, and then leaky gut syndrome. This picture is, if you can see this is normal tight junction. That's how your cells of your digestive tract is supposed to look. Close together, single file like that. They have little finger-like projections called villi, and those help with like absorbing molecules. Pathogens are supposed to stay out of your blood. But because of stress, toxins, inflammation, those little cells start to lose their connection. They're called gap junctions. And then you can see from the picture, you'll have parasites, pathogens, undigested food particles starting to go into your blood, okay? And for me, I had this. And one of the things that it causes is autoimmune, because you have all these things that are foreign in your bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. And your body's like, wait, that's foreign. Let's attack. And then it starts to attack you. And for me, it started then to attack my nervous system. Other people, like lupus, will start to attack the skin. Parkinson's will start to attack the brain. Rheumatoid arthritis, it starts to attack the joints. It goes on and on, right? And so leaky gut syndrome is a huge thing that you have to heal in addition to supporting your digestive tract. And so you'll have people where they'll report they heal their leaky gut, autoimmune disappears, ADHD disappears, kids with autism, like it's like way reduced, like their symptoms, like their kids come back is what they say. Diabetes, and then major skin issues clear up, okay? Oops. Okay, can you guys hear me? Not sure what happened. Sorry about that. Okay. I think it cut out when I first had this slide. Is that right? All right. Thank you guys. Okay. So the whole slide. I'm so sorry about that. But we're back. Okay, so what I was talking about was the leaky gut thing happens to be the very popular, trendy thing that's happening right now is everybody's consuming collagen and bone broth, and rightfully so. The collagen allows for your cells to get their elasticity back, to be able to create the connections. Bone broth has nutrients that the cells need to repair and realign. And so then the whole goal of that is that when you have the collagen and you have the everything kind of coming back, then you don't have it where things can kind of come through, right? And then it's like stopped, okay? Sulfur is a very popular one. That one's going to be in your cruciferous vegetables. Licorice root is calming. Aloe is very calming to the colon. Zinc helps with creating cellular processes to make new cells. Butyrate is it's like a short chain fatty acid that helps to make the new cells. Glutamine is like another substance to make things repair. The pterohydrates, another thing that makes things repair. So point is, you don't have to take all these. The point is, a lot of these supplements and nutrients are out there and you don't have to take it all, but you can start putting it into your system that when you are taking out those inflammatory foods, getting rid of toxins, pooping better, getting those little critters to populate, and then you can throw in these other nutrients to make your cells kind of like come back together. And then, right, the whole fire and gasoline situation, it's starting to die out and the fire is like gone. And then you've made new cells because they repopulate every 2 weeks, right? You make a new cell lining every 2 weeks. And then you can basically have a whole new digestive system, you guys, in a matter of a couple weeks to a couple months. So these things don't take too long to see major results with your digestion and health issues and skin issues and autoimmune issues. And so a lot of people are like, their minds are blown how easy it is. They just needed to know the steps, right? So I just have a couple supplements listed on there. I'm not necessarily saying take this or take that. I'm just showing you that there's so many really good nutrients that you can take to repair the gut lining and fix the holes, fix that leaky gut. Okay, so we are practically done now. Thank you guys for being patient with me. You guys are all so awesome. Hopefully that was only one slide that got, yeah, you guys are pretty good at telling me things. Now, if you're like, oh my gosh, Dr. Faith, this was overwhelming, you gave me a lot of information. Well, don't fear. I made a nice little handout for you guys on gut restoration and repair, kind of re-emphasizing everything I talked about with the 4 R's. And it's in my bio in the Instagram under the link tree, and you'll just see it says gut restoration. And it's a lot of good information, giving you the nutrients. And I think that's basically like, I don't know, I think that's all of it in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, which you were doing really good with your questions along the way, go ahead and shout them out right now. But I'm gonna let you know my next topic in 2 weeks is on hormone balancing. That one is one of my very popular classes that I like to give because everyone has hormone issues, even men, okay? And let's just say men are like, well, I don't have any like female issues. Well, some of you are gonna have girlfriends, you're gonna have sisters, you're gonna have wives, and if you can understand their health with hormones, you can also be supportive to get them healthy, because you know it's like when mama's happy, everyone's happy. And that's just how it is. Okay, anything different for someone without a gallbladder? So Mary, yes, we talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation, there are digestive enzymes that you can take that are called ox bile. And that's a way for you to get extra bile to break down fats, because without a gallbladder, you don't have enough bile to do the job for you. So digestive enzymes are huge for that. Also making sure that your stomach acid has enough pH to kind of help break other things down so that it's not creating backup with when you have to digest fats, if that makes sense. So yeah, ox bile is one of the things I suggest for people with gallbladder issues. I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. And if you have questions, you can always DM me. Thank you for your time. Good night.